and our thanksgiving for the legacy he left behind. May his memory inspire us to resist oppression in all its forms and to build a society rooted in equality, compassion, and peace. So, Holy God, empower us to continue the work that Chief Albert Luthuli began, and let us do so, Holy God, until justice flows like a mighty river. Nkosi ngumusa wako izwa, umtandaza wetu. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Amen.
Reverend Peterson, thank you very, very much indeed for, I think, setting the tone and the stage for tonight's gathering, that we have a presence, I think, with us that's going to help us through our conversation. So like I said, there are a number of partners that have been working together for a good number of years to make sure that we're able to come into this room and hear these lectures year after year, and on a global platform, even though it's from an African stage, as I was saying earlier. And one of the partners is the University of KwaZulu-Natal, who's worked very, very hard to make sure that we don't miss out on this and providing this amazing venue. So thank you so much indeed for all the work that you do and the contributions that you've made over the years. And so to say a few words, it's my great pleasure to introduce the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Humanities, the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Our esteemed speaker this evening, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General, World Trade Organization. His Worship, the Mayor, Councillor Cyril Xaba of eThekwini Municipality. His Worship, the Mayor, Councillors Tutuzo, Kumede, KwaDukuza Municipality. Deputy Director General, Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Vusumuzi Ndima. Synod Chairperson, United Congregational Church of South Africa, the Reverend Heidi Peterson, accompanied by Reverend Sandile Sokela of the UCC Groundville Church. Chairperson of the Luthuli Museum, Advocate Charlie Naidu. Chairperson of the Chair of the Albert Luthuli Foundation, Mr. Sandile Luthuli. The Luthuli family, Abo Madlanduna, Professor Sibusiso Nkomo, Chairperson, Albert and Nogukhanya Luthuli Peace and Development Institute. Members of the Luthuli Museum Council, members of the executive management of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, academics and professional staff, a special welcome to our international partners at UKZN, the Luthuli Museum Management, members of the SRC, fellow students and distinguished alumni, leaders in business and the legal fraternity, members of the Westville community and traditional leaders, Arthur Blacksell Special School for the Blind Choir Committee, namely Ms. T.P. Makatini, who is the choir master, accompanied by Mr. V.T. Mtembu, T.P. Dlamini, and Z.T.G. Zimu. Dr. Mugi Munsami, coordinator of the Ilembe District Coding and Robotics Program. Members of the media present, South African FM, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the 19th Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. Since 2004, when the inaugural address was delivered by former President Thabo Mbeki, this lecture series has become a distinguished fixture on South Africa's intellectual and cultural calendar. It provides us with a platform for honest reflection on global, regional, and local developments, as well as enduring themes such as leadership, justice, peace, and our shared humanity. Each year, speakers from diverse fields guide us through these reflections, drawing inspiration from Chief Luthuli's legacy. Their insights deepen our understanding of his influence while helping us engage contemporary issues through the lens of his principled leadership and timeless wisdom. This year's lecture coincides with renewed national and international attention on the life of Chief Albert Luthuli. The KwaZulu-Natal High Court ruling of 30 October 2025, which found that his death in 1967 resulted from assault and not a train accident, has brought long-awaited relief and vindication to the Luthuli family. We hope that this moment offers a measure of closure after decades of uncertainty. While the judgment has sparked important national conversations, it is equally vital that we remain attentive to Chief Luthuli's ideas, his unwavering commitment to justice, dignity, and peaceful resistance. His life stands as a powerful reminder that moral courage and thoughtful leadership are essential, particularly in times of profound challenge. This year's gathering takes place at a moment when South Africa's leadership on the global stage is receiving heightened attention as our country hosts the G20 summit in Johannesburg. The world's major economies have converged here to deliberate on cooperation, fairer trade, inclusive growth, and sustainable development issues that echo many of the values that defined Chief Luthuli's own life and worldview. His belief in principled engagement, ethical governance, and the pursuit of shared progress resonate strongly with the spirit of multilateralism that the G20 seeks to embody. In this context, it is a singular privilege to welcome Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as our keynote speaker. Her leadership at the World Trade Organization, at a time when global trade systems are being reshaped, offers us an invaluable opportunity to reflect on how economies, particularly those facing systemic constraints, can be better integrated into global value chains. Her presence here enables us to engage more deeply with the pressing questions that surround economic inclusion, equitable development, and the reform of global trading frameworks. This lecture will undoubtedly sharpen our understanding of the complexities of the current global environment and the pathways required to navigate it responsibly. These discussions are timely and necessary as new uncertainties emerge across regions and calls for collaborative, just, and sustainable solutions grow louder. On behalf of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Luthuli Museum and the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture for their steadfast partnership. Our continued collaboration reflects our shared commitment to thoughtful reflection and meaningful dialogue in honor of Chief Luthuli's legacy. Thank you for joining us for this important lecture. I look forward to the conversations it will inspire. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd like to say thank you very much indeed to Professor Mkhize and the University of KwaZulu-Natal for being a long-standing partner to the memorial lecture. So thank you very, very much indeed for those words, and also for the work that you're doing in shaping the minds and inspiring the future leaders of our country and our continent with the work that you do here at the university. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Mkhize. It's my great pleasure now to welcome the chairperson of the Luthuli Museum Council, Advocate Charlie Naidu.
Good afternoon, everyone. Seems like I couldn't find my way to the stage. Apologies for that. Thank you, Program Director. I think I'm racing against time here because 5 o'clock we are going live. So I'm not going to take up much of your time. I have to, though, really appreciate everyone present here today. Our esteemed speaker, and I think we are so honored to have her here, the Director General of the World Trade Organization. Welcome to South Africa. What an honor to have you here. I think everyone has already welcomed you, but from the Luthuli Museum, we are really privileged. When Mr. Kaba told me that you accepted our invitation, I had to do a double take. You know, the Director General of the World Trade Organization accepted our invitation, so thank you so much. Honorable Mayor of KwaDuguza, Mayor Gumede, thank you so much. We were having a conversation which we will continue. Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize, Deputy Vice Chancellor, University of KwaZulu-Natal, Deputy Director General, Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Ndima, Chairperson, United Congregation Church of South Africa, Reverend Heidi Peterson, thank you so much for your wonderful prayer. And my friend, Reverend Sokele, who I've had the opportunity of meeting on numerous occasions, thank you for being with us, of the UCC Groudville Church. Chief Albert Luthuli Foundation, thank you so much, Ms. Nana Nskumalo, for being here as well. Professor Siposiso Nkomo, Chairperson of Albert and Nokukanya Luthuli Peace and Development Institution. And I'm so glad that we have both of them together, because we do quite often give more prominence to the one. And they say behind every successful man is a very powerful woman. Members of the executive management, UKZN, academics and professional staff and Luthuli Museum Management, Mr. Kaba and the team, thank you so much. Students and distinguished alumni, leaders in business and the legal fraternity, members of the Groudville community, thank you so much for being here. Arthur Blacksall Special School for the Blind Choir, I've heard them before, they are actually very brilliant. Thank you very much for that, especially Ms. T.P. Makatini. I'm not sure if you know Tap Tap Makatini or you're related to him, but thank you so much for being here and for the team. Accompanied by Mr. V.T. Mtembu, T.P. Dlamini, and Z.T.G. Zimu. Dr. Mogi Munsami, coordinator of the Ilembe District Coding and Robotics Program, distinguished alumni, members of the media, and especially honored to have SAFM broadcasting live, and someone's going to kick me off the stage if I take too long here. But thank you so much for being here. I think from Luthuli, just to say, we are so honored to have all our partners take hands with us, 19 years on the go, and we've mentioned this past week about handing the baton. And we just want to encourage the youngsters, the young youth to get involved, to carry this torch of the legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli moving forward. And may it be 100th and 200th, annual lecture, and may the legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli continue. For those of us who don't know, the finding is out. I encourage you to read the judgment. Please partner with us. Moving forward, I was encouraging our council members and the staff of Luthuli and the NPA to say the work has just begun. We just started, because we have actually, in fact, changed history. The judgment has changed history, and so there's so much work to be done. We encourage you to partner with us to spread the values. And, right now, I'm sure everyone is watching, television glued. You're almost thinking what is going on, the commission and so forth. But if we can impart the values of, inclusivity, transparency, truth, reconciliation, non-violence to the next generation, we can make South Africa great. So impart the values of Chief Albert Luthuli. It's enshrined in our Constitution. Read the preamble of the Constitution. It's an amazing, it basically is a culmination of the work that Chief Albert Luthuli has done. So we stand and we enjoy the Constitution, and we can all be here today because of a giant that we lost. And so I want to thank you to our partners, and without further ado, Program Director, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Advocate Charlie Naidu. All right, so we are pushing towards the live broadcast through our media shortly. Right now, I'd like to call upon the chairperson of the Albert Nokukanya Luthuli Peace and Development Institute, Professor Sibusiso Nkomo, to join us on stage. So.
Thank you very much. I just got instructions from the chairperson of the occasion. Two things I want to start with. This occasion reminds me of my late mother and father. They used to sing this particular song, Somlandela Luthuli. In other words, if you translate that into English, we shall loyally follow Albert Luthuli because of what he stood for. The second point I want to make, I want to say to all of us, let there be peace, harmony, and love for one another in our families, communities, countries, and the globe. When I was asked to come and support and say something to support the occasion, I was humbled. I felt that maybe I'm not the appropriate person. I thought I would just attend as part of the audience. I am really honored to be standing here. We entirely support the establishment of the memorial lecture. It should continue into the foreseeable future. We also endorse the annual lecture at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Such lectures are about remembrance, education, and allow people to have interest in history, the history of the country and the history of the world. Why do I say that? When people don't know their history, the last point, they don't know where they are going. We should not underestimate the saying that if you don't know your history, you don't know where you are going. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, I'm going to tell you, a dear friend, that I had an opportunity to see you in Durban, not in Washington, D.C. And that's Dr. Rinosi Mokate. A few points to make without boring everybody. Chief Albert Luthuli was a humanitarian. He was a person of the people. He cared about people. A defender of human beings, regardless of race and status. He was an educator, intellectual in other words. He was also an intellectual, a deep thinker. We need more of those kinds of people in the world we live in today. He was humble and a giver to others. He took the responsibility to usher us in the right direction. The world must celebrate this great person. And I highly appreciate that the museum and the University of KwaZulu-Natal are jointly celebrating this important person. I wish the occasion well, and Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, you will do a good job. You are an excellent person. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed, Professor Nkomo. And I love the bit where you said we need love, peace, and harmony among us. And for sure, that really is what we need to embody in everything that we do, including the busy work of the World Trade Organization. If there was more love, peace and harmony, I'm sure, Dr. Ngozi, your job would be so much easier. But thank you very much indeed, Professor Nkomo. We really appreciate your sentiments. And for sure, Chief Luthuli, I think his presence would be desperately needed in the times that we live in today. All right, our last speaker before our lecture, another strong and powerful partner, the Department of Sports and Arts and Culture. And to say a few words from there, it's my great pleasure to welcome the Deputy Director General, Mr. Vusitemba Ndima.
I've just been given a very strict instructions that I should really say all protocol observed because of time constraints. Ladies and gentlemen, it is great honor and privilege for the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture to be part of this significant occasion, the 19th Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. This annual lecture continues to serve as a powerful platform to reflect on the values and legacy of Chief Albert Luthuli, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate whose life and work remain a beacon of ethical leadership and human dignity. The lecture also becomes an important platform for public dialogue and reflection on matters of interest nationally and globally. This memorial lecture takes place under the background of the notable recent judgment by the Pietermaritzburg High Court, which corrected the 1967 judgment on the death of Chief Albert Luthuli, the man who we continue to remember today. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to the Luthuli Museum for its unwavering partnership in preserving and promoting the memory of Chief Luthuli. Your dedication ensures that his ideals of justice, peace, and equality remain alive for future generations. The entire humanity continues to yearn for the actualization of these ideals within the global context of conflict, destruction, poverty, and destitution. These are human-made atrocities and can be resolved by the same human beings if the spirit of Ubuntu was to prevail. Chief Albert Luthuli would not only have denounced these atrocities, but he would have been at the forefront of championing ideals of good neighborliness among nations and peoples of the world. I suppose Chief Albert Luthuli would have perhaps fully endorsed the theme that South Africa has adopted for G20 summit titled Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability. This year's lecture is enriched by the insightful reflections of the Director General of the World Trade Organization. Her address on the theme focusing on the cooperation values that resonate deeply with Chief Albert Luthuli's vision of a fair and an inclusive society. The emphasis on multilateralism and equitable growth reminds us that the struggle for justice is not confined to national borders, but is a universal endeavor. The world has become a neighborhood, as Chief Albert Luthuli once said, and therefore all of us have a shared responsibility to ensure that our global neighborhood thrives not only for the few, but for all who live in it. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, we thank you for being here today to share your insights at this lecture that memorializes an important figure that contributed immensely to this country's struggle for freedom and equality for all. Despite your busy schedule, you saw it fit to spend this day today with us, brief as it might be. We also wish to acknowledge and thank our long-standing partners, the University of KwaZulu-Natal and the Luthuli family for their enduring commitment to this lecture series. Your collaboration over the years has ensured that this event remains a space for dialogue, learning, and inspiration. Finally, we recognize all stakeholders and participants who have contributed to making this lecture a success. Together, we reaffirm our shared responsibility to uphold the principles of democracy, human rights, and social justice that Chief Albert Luthuli championed. May the spirit of Chief Albert Luthuli continue to guide us today during these challenging times. With these few words, let me thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Deputy Director General Ndima. We're always grateful, I think, for the fine work that the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture has been doing in making sure that important conversations like this continue to happen. Okay, we are literally about 6 minutes away from the lecture now, and that's going to be taken live by our media as well. Just before that, I do want us to see the Arthur Blacksall Special School for the Blind again. They're going to perform a short piece, and I think it's important to have people like these young people with us. One of the beautiful traditions of this memorial lecture is that we don't just reflect on Chief Albert Luthuli's ideas, but we also celebrate his spirit. And Chief Luthuli loved music. He sang in church choirs, encouraged school music programs, and believed that music wasn't just sound. It was a language of unity, dignity, and hope. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, let's be led and enjoy as we watch these amazing young people from the Arthur Blacksall Special School for the Blind. Was that them? No, we want more. Don't we want more? Do we want more? Yes. Is there another one? Okay, all right. Oh, that's a pity, because I really wanted to hear more of that. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, okay, I think we can actually start now. And in fact, just to let you know a little bit more about these young people and why I'm so excited about them. They started actually as a small group back in 2017. And even when COVID-19 paused their journey, they didn't give up. They came back stronger. And in 2022, they earned second place at the regional ABC Motsepe SACE competition, a moment that really lifted the entire school community. So let's recognize their achievement there. And their rise continued in 2024 when they proudly represented KwaZulu-Natal at national level, once again placing second at the SASCE Nationals, standing amongst the finest school choirs in the country. I think you're starting to see why I get excited about these young people. And I think what makes their achievements truly profound is that these young performers live with little or no sight, and they actually help us see the possibility. They help us see beyond limitation, and they help us see why Chief Albert Luthuli believed that human dignity rests not in circumstance, but more in spirit. So I'm really hoping, ladies and gentlemen, when you see them again a little bit later on, you can just bring in some of this spirit that I'm feeling when I heard their story and see them perform. And we just hope they continue to soar to even greater heights going forward. So that's the Arthur Blacksall School. And if we can, let's give them a big round of applause so that they can hear that we appreciate them. and we're listening to them. Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the evening, and it's my great privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker to deliver the 19th Annual Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial Lecture. Our keynote speaker this evening is truly extraordinary, and yet if you've ever listened to her, you'll know that she carries all of that brilliance with warmth, humility, as well as humor. No pressure, I'm not asking you to be funny. She's the first woman and the first African, and I think that that is an incredible achievement. To lead the World Trade Organization in its entire 30-year history. But you know what? Long before Geneva and long before the WTO, there was Nigeria, there was Harvard, there was MIT, but there was a young girl who believed that knowledge, fairness, and good governance could change lives. She served as Nigeria's finance minister twice, helping guide Africa's largest economy through debt reform, financial reconstruction, and policy transformation. She spent 25 years at the World Bank, managed global crises, helped negotiate vaccine access during COVID-19, and served as a trusted advisor to presidents, multilateral bodies, and development institutions around the world. But I think perhaps what makes her most special is that she's a bridge builder, a consensus maker, a negotiator who brings people together when interests often collide. And that happens quite a lot, as you can imagine. She's someone who understands that trade isn't just about tariffs and export graphs, but it's also about people, about dignity, and about opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, honored guests, it really is an honor and a pleasure to ask to deliver the 19th Chief Albert Luthuli Memorial. Please welcome the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And good afternoon to all of you. Now, Mr. Ndoro, Peter, where are you? You're fabulous, but you forgot a really important part of my resume. So I'm a mother of 4. I'm a wife of 46 years. And I'm a grandmother of 7. So it's a really important part of my resume, because without it, I don't think I would really be succeeding at what I'm doing. So I have a very supportive spouse and a very supportive family. Thank you. Now, Mr. Ndoro, don't go away. Come. When I came, I felt so much at home, you know, when I heard all the protocol that you were going through, because this is just like Nigeria. You know, we go through a very long list, and then at the end we say all protocol observed. Can I stand on existing protocol?
Absolutely.
Or maybe I should go through it, because they're very important people. So starting with my thanks to you, I'd also like to thank Mr. Gumede, the Honorable Mayor of the Kwadukuza Municipality, Mr. Cyril Klaba, the Mayor of Etigwini, and forgive me if I say the name slightly wrong, the Deputy Director General of the Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Ndima, thank you very much, the Synod Chairperson of the United Congregational Church of South Africa, the Reverend Heidi Peterson. What a powerful prayer. I'm a person of faith, so thank you so much. And accompanied by Reverend Sandile Sokela of the UCC Groutville Church. Thank you so much. The chairperson of the Luthuli Museum, I can see your energy, the indomitable advocate Charlie Nedu. Well done. Ms. Nana Umalo of the Albert Luthuli Foundation, thank you. The Luthuli family is so nice to have you all here. Professor Nkomo, thank you for your kind words. The Albert and Nokukanya Luthuli Peace and Development Institute, members of the Luthuli Museum Council, members of the Executive Management UKZN, academics and professional staff, Luthuli Museum Management, members of the SRC, fellow students and distinguished alumni, leaders in business and the legal fraternity, members of the Westville community, Arthur Blackstone's Special Choir for the Blind, choir committee, thank you so much for the wonderful rendition. Dr. Mogi Munsami, coordinator of the Lembe District Coding and Robotics Program, distinguished alumni, members of the media, SAFM, distinguished guests. Now I can say all protocol observed. So thank you so much for having me. It's an immense honor to join you here to pay tribute to the memory of a giant of our continent's struggle for freedom, equality, and democracy. Chief Albert Luthuli's legacy remains an inspiration not only here in South Africa, but for all Africans in our continuing pursuit of peace and better lives. I'm humbled to follow in the footsteps of the luminaries who have preceded me at this podium. I'm also excited to be here because I was a teenager during the time of all the liberation struggles. And I remember how in my country, Nigeria, there was so much support for the movements. And people may not know it, but civil servants in Nigeria were actually having their salaries docked each month. They had deductions automatically taken and the money was sent to support the South African struggle as well as the struggles all around in Southern Africa. So I'm also very proud of my country. I'm proud of my countrymen and women for doing that. Now, before I proceed, let me also say that since I'm here and I'll be joining the G20 meeting tomorrow, I want to congratulate South Africa, congratulate my brother, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and his cabinet on hosting the first G20 on African soil at a time, thank you. At a time when the African Union has also been admitted as a member of the G20. So this is wonderful. No matter the geopolitical difficulties we see and hear, this is an achievement that we should all celebrate, and it will go down in the history of the G20. Turning now to my speech, I'll be speaking about trade. I was asked to reflect on the work of the World Trade Organization and its global impact. And I was asked to speak for 30 to 45 minutes. But, you know, I've learned that after 30 minutes, the attention span wanders. And so I've tried to keep my remarks to about 25 minutes. It's a bit technical, so I hope you won't get too bored. But I'll do my best because trade, you know, you can't really talk about it so much and explain the background without getting a bit technical. So bear with me. So that I will now turn to the speech, and let me take a moment to recall how Chief Luthuli used commerce as a tool of resistance. As ANC leader in 1959, he called on international consumers, particularly in the United Kingdom, to boycott goods from apartheid South Africa. Such boycotts ultimately grew into the comprehensive economic and financial sanctions that helped push the increasingly isolated apartheid regime, to release Madiba Nelson Mandela and pursue democratic reform. So Chief Luthuli actually saw how you could use commerce and trade also to be able to achieve a very important objective. Just as boycotts were in South Africa's case a useful weapon against oppression, trade can, and indeed has been, a positive instrument for empowerment. Connecting communities and countries to international market opportunities has created jobs, raised incomes, and improved people's abilities to lead lives of dignity instead of desperation. These are the goals that many of you have repeated, that Chief Albert Luthuli shared. I must tell you that in this regard, many people do not know, but that the purpose of the World Trade Organization, my organization, is to enhance living standards, to help create jobs, and to support sustainable development. All of it about people. And that is part of the reason that I took this job, because it's about people and we must try to make the organization work as much for people as possible. I was asked to reflect today on the WTO's global impact since its establishment 30 years ago. But I'd like to go back a bit further than that and take you a little bit down memory lane, because the WTO has two birthdays. In one sense, it's 30 years old because it was the proper name WTO was founded 30 years ago, but it's also 80 years old because it's part of that whole Bretton Woods creation that was put in place after World War II. Its origins lie not just in the optimism of the post-Cold War 1990s, but in the effort to reconstruct an international order and a functional world economy from the ashes of the Second World War. Over the course of these decades, the world trading system has become part of the plumbing of the global economy. And most people are not accustomed to thinking of their plumbing. I say many people don't really know what goes on at the WTO. How many of you knew about the WTO before I was invited for this lecture? Put up your hand. Be truthful, you see. Don't worry, because that's the nature of the World Trade Organization. I call it part of the plumbing of the global economic system. And you and me, we don't think about the plumbing in our house every day until the pipe bursts and ruins the carpet. Then we remember we have plumbing. So the WTO is a little bit like that. It is the plumbing that makes the world trade system work. But most people don't think about it until something starts to happen. And I think the reason why trade is so popular now is because things are starting to happen in the trading system, and that plumbing is proving a little leaky, to say the minimum. My goal, today is to use this lecture to explain what the multilateral trading system has accomplished, as you asked me to, where it has fallen short and must improve, and what stands to be lost if we cannot repair these leaks that we are seeing now. In so doing, I want to look at this longer history and at how Africa has fit in before turning to the road ahead and how African members can help shape the trading system of the future. So let's start a full century ago in the 1920s. The First World War from 1914 to 1918 had severely disrupted global trade and finance. Many wartime barriers remained in place, and some had been raised even further. Leading economies were trying but failing to deliver the cooperation needed to put both on a firmer footing. Their efforts offer uncomfortable echoes of our own time. To take one example, an international economic conference was held in Geneva in 1927 under the auspices of the League of Nations. Participants sagely agreed that to revive world trade, tariffs should be reduced and applied on a non-discriminatory, most favored nation basis. But little action ensued. Those of us familiar who have read about the Great Depression know what happened next in the absence of a global economic stabilizing force. 1929 and the early 1930s were marked by vicious circles of banking and financial crisis, collapsing output and deflation, exchange rate chaos, and tit-for-tat trade protectionism. You probably remember hearing about the Smoot-Hawley Act of the United States, whose tariffs were the Tariff Act were met with widespread retaliation elsewhere. Countries retreated at that time into increasingly isolated economic blocs. All this helped to lay the groundwork for World War II. U.S. Treasury Secretary Henry Morgenthau at the time described the economic chaos and its political aftermath in his opening remarks to the Bretton Woods Conference in 1944, and I quote, "We saw currency disorders develop and spread from land to land, destroying the basis for international trade and international investment, and even international faith. In their wake, we saw unemployment and wretchedness, idle tools, wasted wealth. We saw their victims fall prey in places to demagogues and dictators. We saw bewilderment and bitterness become the breeders of fascism and finally of war." Does any of it sound familiar? Bretton Woods, formerly the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, was called to revive global trade and finance and to bring the order that was so lacking during the interwar period. It gathered together officials from all 44 allied nations to shape the post-war international economic and monetary system. The key insight of what became known as the Bretton Woods Order was that reconstruction, employment, and development would go hand in hand with open trade and macro-financial stability. Their hope was that more trade and greater interdependence would foster peace and prosperity. The conference established the International Monetary Fund to promote monetary coordination and maintain exchange rate stability, and the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, better known as the World Bank, where I worked for a quarter century, to provide long-term financing for reconstruction and expanding productive capacity. Both the IMF and the World Bank were charged with promoting the balanced growth of international trade, not as an end in itself, but as a means of higher employment, productivity, and incomes. Much less well known is that the stool was supposed to have a third leg, IMF, World Bank, and something to be known as the International Trade Organization. But the ITO never came into being. The charter negotiated by governments at the UN Conference on Trade and Employment ran aground in the US Congress. But a parallel negotiating process produced the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade in 1947. Because the GATT, as it became known, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, was nominally provisional, it did not require congressional ratification in the US and so could move on. And it's the GATT that I'm referring to when I say the WTO is 30 years old and it's also 80 years old. Because when it was created as ITO, International Trade Organization, it was not accepted in the US Congress. But then this parallel process produced a trade organization that was the precursor to the WTO of today. The GATT set out rules and principles for international trade. Trade barriers were to be made more transparent and applied on a non-discriminatory basis amongst trading partners. It also created a framework for resolving disputes and negotiating progressively lower tariffs and other trade restrictions. Successive rounds of GATT negotiations would do just that. And by the 1960s, between lower trade barriers and the large-scale adoption of containerized shipping, global trade was growing faster than global GDP. As border measures like tariffs and quotas declined, behind the border policies like subsidies, regulations, and how goods were valued for customs purposes loomed larger in terms of their influence on trade flows and trade frictions. The Tokyo Round negotiations in the 1970s produced plurilateral agreements which members called codes on new issues like subsidies and countervailing measures, technical barriers to trade, government procurement, import licensing, customs valuation, as well as updated rules about determining and countering the practice of dumping when goods are sold abroad below their home market price. Many current WTO agreements, such as the Agreement on Subsidies and Countervailing Measures and the WTO Customs Valuation Agreements, have their origins in the Tokyo Round plurilateral codes. At the same time, however, many GATT members, especially developing countries, were hesitant to accept binding rules in these areas, and the voluntary opt-in approach allowed willing countries to move forward. During the GATT's early decades, however, the gains delivered by the system mostly went to industrialized countries, most dramatically to Western Europe and Japan. A handful of poor economies in East Asia, the future Asian tigers, has started trying to use external markets to pursue export-led development. But many more of the newly independent developing countries that joined the GATT were struggling with declining terms of trade, meaning that their earnings from commodity exports decline relative to their import bills for manufactures and other goods. Per capita incomes across most of the global south steadily lost ground compared to faster-growing, richer nations. Their understandable frustrations about how global trade was working had roots in the creation of the GATT, which was negotiated just among 23 countries. Although nearly half of the original signatories were developing economies, including Burma, Brazil, pre-1949 China, Cuba, India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, the agenda was driven primarily by industrialized nations led by the United States and to a lesser extent the UK. Africa was represented only by Southern Rhodesia and the Union of South Africa, both then under white minority rule. As President Nelson Mandela said in 1998 to a WTO conference to mark the 50th anniversary of the GATT, and I quote, we need not dwell on why Southern Rhodesia and the Union of South Africa in particular entered the GATT. We do know that the peoples of Africa were not consulted. I and the vast majority of South Africans had no vote and were completely excluded from such decisions, end quote. From its inception, the GATT largely excluded agriculture and textiles from its core disciplines, the very sectors in which many developing economies had a comparative advantage. Given political sensitivities within industrialized countries, the two sectors were subject to high protection and special quotas and preferential schemes to allow them to manage competition from developing countries. This left many developing countries feeling the system was tilted against them. Such perceptions were not helped when industrialized nations pledged during the 1960s to open their markets to exports from developing countries, but did so in non-binding best endeavor clauses that delivered few tangible benefits. By the mid-1980s, developing countries accounted for a large majority of the GATT's 123 members. The Uruguay round negotiations, which ran from 1986 to 1994, finally brought agriculture and textiles into multilateral trade rules, together with services and intellectual property. The GATT rulebook was comprehensively updated, and most of the Tokyo round plurilaterals were modernized and multilateralized. The institution itself was transformed into the WTO in 1995, a formal international organization with binding dispute settlement and a so-called single undertaking that required all members, developed and developing, to accept the entire package of new rules. However, the bargain left many developing countries dissatisfied. Implementing obligations in areas like intellectual property was expensive and immediate. Meanwhile, the promised gains, such as reductions in rich country farm subsidies and meaningful market access for agricultural products and textiles, were slow to materialize. Developing countries sought to use the Doha round negotiations to rebalance perceived inequities, but as we all know, the Doha round, development round, did not work out, and that compounded the sense of grievance on the part of developing countries. Yet, even as these negative dynamics among negotiators were further entrenching themselves in global trade diplomacy, a major shift was underway in the development trajectory of poor countries, with trade playing a vital role. Starting around 1990, growth accelerated across much of the developing world. For the first time in centuries, poor countries began to narrow the per capita income gap with rich ones, reversing divergences that dated back to so far back, even to the Industrial Revolution. In 1995, for instance, advanced economies accounted for nearly 60% of world GDP in purchasing power parity terms, with developing economies making up the remaining 40%. Part of the struggle we have today is that 30 years later, that distribution has been inverted. Now, developing countries contribute the bulk of global GDP, the 60%, whilst developed countries contribute 40%. And that explains the tensions, some of the geopolitical tensions that we're struggling with today. Trade was a vital factor in these changes. Market-oriented reforms, falling transport and communications costs, and predictable access to global markets help more countries integrate into global value chains and use external demand, inputs, and ideas to drive growth and development. As I alluded to at the outset, the consequences for people's lives were dramatic. More than 1.5 billion people were lifted out of extreme poverty through the interaction with trade. And even when you exclude China, because a lot of that came from China's development, it still stands. Hundreds of millions of poor people were lifted out of poverty through the interaction and the impact of trade on growth. Writing in Foreign Affairs, Dev Patel, Justin Sandefur, and Arvind Subramanian called the 3 decades between 1990 and the pandemic year of 2020, and I quote, history's most golden period of economic development. They argued that perhaps the most important enabler of convergence was the rapid increase in trading opportunities for developing countries. So in spite of the struggles within the negotiating arena, the opening up of trade itself had a massively positive impact on poverty reduction globally. WTO research confirms that the pace of income convergence of low and middle income countries is strikingly correlated with their participation in global trade. To be clear, the period was not golden for everyone. I want us to know that. Developing countries with lower trade participation or greater commodity dependence lagged on convergence, and Africa was part of that, but also parts of Latin America and the Caribbean and the Middle East. World Bank chief economist Indemit Gill notes that Africa lost ground relative to other developing regions. The continent's success stories have not been enough to make up for slow growth in the region's economic giants. South Africa, Nigeria, and Angola, which account for nearly 60% of sub-Saharan Africa's GDP, all held back by inadequate infrastructure, electricity, weak education systems, and insufficient domestic resource mobilization. In fact, Africa's share of global trade has stagnated below 3% for a couple of decades now. Better trade integration could contribute so much more to Africa's overall growth. However unsatisfying the experiences we've had over the past 3 decades, including from the continent, all of us should seek to ensure that the current trade disruptions we are seeing do not hold development prospects back for the years ahead. A strong and effective World Trade Organization is the best bulwark to ensure that global markets remain open and predictable, and that Africa benefits from such open markets. That is why in 1998, despite his dissatisfaction with the Uruguay round outcome, President Mandela described the building of a multilateral rules-based system as, I quote, and I quote, fundamentally correct. He said, quote, powerful economies must stop applying unilateral measures, and the developing countries must negotiate their specific needs within the framework. In recent months, unilateral tariff actions have given us a glimpse of what a power-based trading system looks like, and it's certainly not pretty. While Africa as a whole has not been as badly impacted by the unilateral actions of the US, given limited overall trade with the United States, which accounts for only 6% of Africa's exports and 4% of imports. Certain countries on the continent, of course, have been hit, and South Africa chief among them, but also Lesotho, Madagascar, and others. The USA's average trade-weighted tariff vis-à-vis the rest of the world has increased from 2.5% at the beginning of the year to 17% earlier this month, a huge increase. But its average trade-weighted tariff on US imports from South Africa used to be 0.07%, very low. It is now 18.2%. A huge jump. After the various tariff increases levied on South Africa for trade and non-trade purposes. I'm just giving you these numbers to show you how things have really changed in the present environment and how difficult they've become. So the multilateral trading system and the WTO rules have been undermined. Yes. And the global trading system has been battered and bruised. Some even think the system is over and done with. But here I have some important information for you. And that is that the multilateral trading system is still standing and functioning. That's why I'm here. Believe it or not, thank you. Believe it or not, in spite of the heavy disruptions and undermining, 72%, almost three-quarters of world goods trade is still going on WTO most favored nation terms. Yes, it is down from 80% prior to the tariffs, but at 72%, the system is proving quite resilient. This has been very encouraging to WTO members, and they, the members, deserve the credit for how strongly the system is still working, because they have avoided a tit-for-tat trade war with the US, as happened in the 1930s. And in addition, they continue to trade with each other on WTO terms. The WTO's role in keeping trade flowing smoothly goes well beyond tariffs. WTO rules for services, health and product standards, customs valuation and intellectual property, to name just a few of that plumbing I was talking about, play important roles in keeping trade stable, trusted and predictable. Members continue to use, our 166 members continue to use WTO relevant committees to discuss possible trade irritants arising from health and safety or technical regulations, often nipping future disputes in the bud. If this plumbing vanishes, if the WTO is set aside, if the rules are totally undermined, there would be chaos. And that is why we must continue the battle. And that's what makes me wake up every day, because we have not benefited enough on the African continent. We cannot allow the ladder that allowed others to climb up to be kicked away just when we are getting ready. We must battle for it. We must battle for the system. But when I say all this, does that also mean that the system, all is well and good, and we should be complacent? The answer is no. Even though it's still working, largely working, we have to accept that there are problems and there are challenges. And there's fragility, and we need to worry about how to fix this. Members, including in Africa, are concerned about many things. They've long complained, as I told you, that we are not fully integrated into the world trading system, and this could be better. The US has also complained about unfairness, lack of transparency, and implementation of the trading rules the way they should be. Emerging market members have complained. And I think even though we may not like the US's unilateral actions, many of their complaints are also legitimate, and we should listen to them. So we have to deal with our own complaints as developing countries, the US's complaints, the complaints of emerging market members, and ask ourselves, should we wallow in this crisis and continue to complain? Or can we see this crisis as the golden opportunity to reform the system, including reforming those things that don't work for us as Africans? My thesis to you is that we must do that. Of course, we have the option to continue to complain, to hold on to old grievances, to be upset because we were not there at the table when some of the rules were made and they didn't go in our favor, to complain that the Doha round didn't work. All this is true. But if we continue that and we don't move and we don't allow reform to take place at the WTO, what will that mean? The organization will continue to be stuck. It's not good enough to have complaints. We must act on those complaints. It's not good enough to continue to hold on to the past. We must look to the future. And this future, there are many exciting things happening in trade. Digital trade, digitally delivered services trade, where Africa has a chance. We are only 1% of digitally delivered services trade, which is now worth almost $5 trillion. But that trade is growing very fast. Our young people are on the internet doing amazing things. In South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, these are the countries where things are happening. Should we not be thinking of how do we at the WTO change so we can evolve rules that help them? Should we not be thinking about AI, artificial intelligence, and what it means for trade, and what opportunities we should seize and be looking at in that context? Should we not think of green trade, where Africa may have a comparative advantage? We have the critical minerals, don't we? We have the sun. We have the green hydrogen. What we are saying to investors now is that you need to, if you want to build world resilience in value chains, you need to come to Africa. You need to come here, and as the President Ramaphosa is putting a critical minerals framework for the G20, it's the right thing. Let them come and invest here and add value to our commodities here. Do you know that we are still exporting 60% of our exports from the continent is still commodities and raw materials today? 60%. If we continue that way, we are not going to be able to get a greater share of world trade. We must add value to our products here. And when we add value, we also create jobs. What we need now is jobs. Jobs for our young people. And the only way we are going to create jobs, 1 in 4 or 5 people in the world by 2050 will be a young African. But unless we skill them and create jobs, instead of having a golden dividend, we may be heading for social problems. So we want trade to be part of the solution to Africa's problem. We want trade to bring value chains here, create value, add value, export more, grab more of the global market, but also trade more among ourselves. And this is where the African Continental Free Trade Area is so valuable. But we've got to accelerate its implementation. I asked myself, when 50% tariffs were put on Lesotho, that exports $200 million worth of textiles to the United States, and that's 10% of their GDP. And it was so shocking. But later on, I asked myself a question. Excuse me, we spent $7 billion in Africa importing textiles, garments, and other things. Some of the same things made by Lesotho. Why are they exporting? Why are we worrying about 200 million sent to another country? Why can't they sell it here to us? What do we need to do to make our intra-Africa trade bigger than 15 to 20%? EU's trade is 60% among EU members. We need to be aiming for that sort of number. So we trade more among ourselves, spend our money among ourselves, and then we also trade more outside. So ladies and gentlemen, you can see where my mind is going. I believe that trade can be a force to help us change, to help us accelerate our growth, to help us make this continent that is so exciting to me finally reach its potential. But it will not work unless we ourselves do what we need to do. We also need to put the environment to attract investment put the infrastructure that the private sector needs in place. But I'm not a pessimist about the continent. I'm an optimist. And I think it's considered optimism. It's not foolish optimism. I can see where we make the right decisions in using trade and investment to spur our economies and delivering the results that we so badly want. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude. I mentioned that we need to do reforms at the WTO. Reforms that will help us realize this dream of helping Africa accelerate its growth. But we have no option, really. It's not a choice. We've got to, on this continent, support the reform of the WTO alongside the acceleration of implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It is the two going hand in hand that will help us deliver the growth, the development, the sustainable growth, the creation of jobs and employment that our people so badly need. In his Nobel Prize lecture in Oslo, Chief Luthuli called for, I quote, building a world community which will stand as a lasting monument to the millions of men and women who have given their lives that we may live in happiness and peace. I believe that from where I stand, we can contribute to that community of happiness and peace through these reforms, through working hand in hand with the continental opportunities we have here, and we can deliver for all of us. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. How inspiring was that, ladies and gentlemen? And I think you may not have known a lot about the World Trade Organization before, and even now you might still not know that much, but I think she really described it quite well at the beginning when she talked about these things go on, but you notice them when things go wrong. When you don't notice them, then they're working really well. And I think that that is a really good analogy. But again, I think the important message is it's Africa's season. It is our time. And we are so blessed, honored, and grateful to have an African leading a global organization such as the WTO at this time in our history. Especially as she pointed out how young our continent is, and that the future of the world actually is going to depend very much upon the young people that we're seeing in this room right now. And so it is our time to write the story, not just of our continent, but dare I say, of the world itself. And we thank you, Dr. Ngozi, for being at the front of setting that up. Truly, truly inspiring. Thank you so, so much. Okay. So we're going to have a short conversation now. But just before that, there are a few people that I'd like us to acknowledge, and one of them is General Kikine, who is with the Luthuli detachment of the MK military veterans. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. And also, I'm pleased to tell you that we are also showing this via Zoom webinar. And he couldn't be with us today, but he's with us and he's watching, and we say thank you for joining us. The Honorable Mayor of eThekwini, Councillor Cyril Tlaba, thank you very much indeed. We know you're watching. Thank you so much. And Miss Ella Gandhi is also watching. So thank you so much indeed for tuning in and being part of the audience witnessing this great day. All right, let me go sit down now and have a conversation with our Director General. We will collect your questions that you might have, and a little bit after this, or during this conversation, I'll call for those questions. They're going to send them to me. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they'll figure it out. They'll get the questions to me, and then we'll get your thoughts to the Director General. Okay, so here's your microphone. Right, I mean, there's so many, I don't even know where to start because you said, but I think in the end for me, more than anything is, how can we simplify the WTO in a form that the most ordinary citizen in the rural areas of KwaZulu-Natal right now can say, what you're doing affects me and it's important for me. How do we do that?
Well,
Okay.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think the first thing is to begin by trying to explain what the World Trade Organization stands for, its purpose. Because people get surprised when I say that it's all about people. And you're right, in my village in Nigeria, I mean, people don't know about the WTO except now that I'm there. Yeah. But it's trying to tell them that this organization oversees the way goods and services move in the world, such that when you go to the market to buy something, you see it sitting there, but it's there because there have been a set of rules designed to make sure that these products come to you across waters or across land with certain product standards, that you can go in and buy those things, believing they'll meet certain standards of health and hygiene and safety. Trade requires a lot of trust, doesn't it? Suppose you go and buy a T-shirt of a certain standard that came from somewhere, and when you wear it, you break out in rashes, or something happens. Or you buy baby milk from somewhere, and then, your baby, God forbid, falls ill. When you go to buy something, doesn't it require trust? How do you think it gets there? How do you think you can have a minimum amount of trust? Yes, you have your national product safety and regulatory bodies. But before them, there's an international one that makes sure that things are for a certain standard for health and safety. That's what I would tell them. Say, you're wearing this and you're eating this because we have rules that make sure that those who sell to you sell things that you can rely on and depend on and trust in. There's nothing more fundamental than that, isn't it?
So the other thing is that what we see a lot on the continent is informal trade and trade across our borders. Often we think of international trade and it's big corporations, but actually a lot of what's happening in Africa is people getting on a bus, going to the next country with what they've sown, what they've grown, what they've put together. Where do you fit in to help those small people? Because those actually are the ones, when you put them all together, are contributing significantly to the African economy.
Yes, not only, I mean, a lot of the employment on our continent and the trade is in the informal sector, but really they are the ones that are driving growth. But even in developed countries, SMEs, small and medium enterprises, provide the bulk of employment. And so, these are very, very important things. For me, I think the greatest thing we can try to do for these people, one, I'll mention two or three, or we're trying, is our rules that make it such that their trade is facilitated across borders. Okay, those who are trading across borders, for instance, this is where we come in. When you have to wait long hours in a bus, and you have to fill multiple papers, and you're not allowed to go in, and you know your products that you're holding, depending on what it is, maybe even spoils because you know the lorry or whatever is spending days. Those are things that we try to work on. We've actually got an agreement called the Trade Facilitation Agreement, meant to help do away with most of these barriers at borders and make it easier. But guess what? The average implementation of this agreement all over the world is about 73–75%. But in Africa, it's 40-something%. So we're way behind. So if our economies could implement some of these measures, including digitizing some of the requirements, it would enable people to cross back and forth, okay? The second is looking at what directly can you do to help people who are in the informal sector, SMEs, to access finance to scale up. Because remaining small all the time, that's the problem we have. And we actually have a sister agency called International Trade Center. WTO owns 50% of it, the UN owns 50%. And its job is to focus on SMEs directly. Not just as a micro, medium, and small enterprises to facilitate information on trade, help them with access to finance, technical assistance and capacity building, and all those things. And you know, they were the ones that helped work with South Africa to organize. You had a conference on SMEs for the first time. Do you remember? Ministers in charge of micro, small, and medium enterprises came from all over the world. They decided we need to start gathering them together to be able to pass some of these messages on how can we better help the small man and woman or small young person who is trying to trade. So those are the ways, with bigger policy approaches, with opening up markets, with trying to advise on where you can access finance, where we can help. Let me mention one last thing that I'm a bit proud of that we're doing. We just launched a $50 million fund to help women in digital trade. When I went round some of our African countries and some other developing countries, as I travel around, I noticed a lot of women are trading digitally. They are making their products, they are selling on the internet, they are accessing markets in very far away places. But they often need to scale. And access to information on how to broaden their markets, access to finance, the same things. So I decided to launch this one with the International Trade Center for $50 million to launch a worldwide competition to access this money for women. We've raised $22 million so far, believe it. It's only a couple of months. And the Gulf countries, I went to them, and I'm grateful. Qatar, UAE, and Bahrain, and the others are coming along to see this one. And we've launched the worldwide competition. The first countries, we launched it for countries to compete. Once a country wins, then within the country, we launch it for women trading digitally to compete. So it's competition all the way. We've done the first one, and I have to say the African country that won is Nigeria. So I had nothing to do with it, I assure you. But you know, we're a very entrepreneurial country. So, and then we went there, and there are about 100 and something women who are being helped now. Similarly, Mongolia won from the Asia, Jordan won from Middle East, and Dominican Republic in Latin America. So we are reaching women directly, and we'll continue to do so. And we hope that South Africa will win next time.
So again, sticking with trading, particularly across Africa, we hear about this African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We have the SADCs, the COMESAs, the EACAs, the West Africa body, ECOWAS. And yet still, it costs more for us to trade with each other than the rest of the world. Why is that? What needs to happen to change that?
It costs exactly 20% more for us to trade with each other than to trade with some externally. this is really not acceptable. It can cost you less to bring goods, not it can, it does, from China to Lagos than from Johannesburg to Lagos. Or even going from Lagos to Senegal, to Dakar. So we have to do something about it. And it's because we are not well connected. We are not well connected even through shipping lines. How many ships just go around the Africa coast transporting goods, container goods from one country to the other? Have you seen them?
No.
Is anyone investing in that? How many cross-border, even the West African highway that we are going to build to connect the countries, we haven't yet done. So, you know, until we improve connectivity, it's only one part of the cost, but I'm just pointing that out. We need to really have 2 or 3 like real projects. They are there. The African Union has since identified them. We just need to get the investment in. But there are other things we can do also. Some of it has to do with this bureaucracy I was talking about, of all the requirements at the borders and having to wait. In East Africa, some of those have been done away with between countries, so you can move more rapidly. We just need to do away even with visa requirements and things like that, so that if you're African, you can move easily. At one time, AU was going to do an African passport. I even had one for a period of time. And they were starting with policymakers and then business people and then normal and ordinary people. And maybe policymakers are abnormal. But, but I don't know what has happened.
Yeah.
Mine has expired. But if we had that and you could just move easily, of course, you can put certain controls, whatever, at a country level. But I think it would help. Yeah. So all this is in our hands.
Right.
We are the ones who are putting up the barriers. It's not somebody from outside.
So let me ask you then, you were finance minister twice. What were the challenges that you faced in trying to create an enabling environment?
Within the country.
And even with neighboring states, because in the end, actually, we've got to look at Africa as one place if we're going to succeed.
Oh, challenges were enormous. And I think some have gotten better on the trade side and some not. In West Africa, I think it's a little different. ECOWAS was working relatively well, but you know, Nigeria is a big market in West Africa. We are, if my numbers are correct, we are more than 2/3 of the region's GDP. And so the issue, and we were ready during my time to absorb as many of the goods coming in. I think one struggle we faced is something that is related to rules of origin. And we were always fighting with that because we said any goods made in the West, in any of our ECOWAS countries could come in. Because we had a customs union among us. But often goods came in that were not really made there. You know, they were transshipped through.
Okay.
And then stamped as if they were made in a particular country, but they were not. And so that's something we struggled with, and I had to work hard. You know, the instinctive response from maybe the powers is to ban the goods and close the borders. And sometimes that was done, but I don't believe in that, because if you close, they just find another route in. It's really to sit with the neighboring countries, which we finally did, and say, look, let's agree on a way. If this thing is truly made in your country, can you allow us to come and inspect the factories to make sure that this is really coming? So at that time, we finally agreed on that, ability to go work with them, look at the factories, make sure the materials or whatever we were getting were really made there. Then that was no issue. So that was a bit of a struggle, this issue of rules of origin, where things are originating from. And I think we'll struggle with it in Africa to make sure that once we start trading, the things made that we are trading with each other are really made in our countries and not really being transshipped, from elsewhere. So the other thing we have to struggle with is payment systems. We all want to earn foreign exchange from selling our goods. We need to make payment easier. and we also need to earn in our own currencies. How can we trade with each other so we are not automatically having to translate our money into some foreign currency and then use that to pay each other? And I think things are better now. Those payment systems are actually being developed. I think Afrexim Bank has been working on one, and I hope soon we will have payment system in the, you know, they are doing this pilot in the African Continental Free Trade Area, a pilot of several countries to launch the trade and see how it actually works. If that succeeds, it can be broadened, payment systems can work, and then some of these obstacles that we observe then will be so much better.
I know that you've often advocated for gender-responsive trade policies, and I wonder how we can make sure or find a way to empower women-led businesses and maybe even young people as well, given the population dynamics of our continent. How can we design our trading so that women don't get left behind and young people are empowered, because they really are the future?
Well, I think I think we're extremely lucky, because I think we've got very dynamic populations among women and youth who are very entrepreneurial. In West Africa, it's so obvious. You see them, and in Southern Africa and everywhere you go. So with that entrepreneurship, I think the key question before you get to trade is to help them look at their, see how do you empower their businesses. Before you trade, you have to create something, right? And we have so many people creating, not only all over, in the agricultural sector, in creative industries, music, fashion. We have tech. We have young people who are doing things in fintech, agri-tech, edutech, health tech. You should see it. There are amazing things happening. So my approach would be, in a particular country, to say, okay, I don't get in the way of these people. What I need to know is, what are the obstacles they face to do their business? And how can I make that better? If it is obstacles regarding infrastructure and access, maybe creating special economic zones where they can have electricity and everything laid on, where they can rent somewhere where they don't have to worry about the infrastructural access. If it's access to finance, maybe creating a fund that targets them, especially initially, and then connects them to the banking system so they can have access to loans. And, you know, you've got a lot of facilities here in South Africa. So, but I think sometimes we need to use special vehicles to help. Creating market access and market information. That's the other thing. How do they get information about which markets, especially if they want to trade abroad? So I would identify obstacles, working with the women, you've got to talk to them, and then you begin to tackle those obstacles. We did it in Nigeria when I was finance minister. We created a program. The president it's really very supportive of this. And it was called You Win. Youth Enterprise with Innovation. You Win. And it was a competition we launched for young people in the country. And it was a business planning competition open to all young people. You compete, you submit a business plan. So you go to the internet, you have to be connected. And then we realized that some of those in secondary cities and towns may not have. So we went to banks there and say, please allow them, if they want to apply, to come into your place and use your computers and access. And we made arrangements for them. And there was a national competition. And what did we want them to do? They must create a minimum number of jobs if they win the grant. And the grants were anywhere from 10,000 equivalent, they were not small, 10,000 to $90,000 that you can use to scale your business. Then we connected them to banks so that they could become But before we did all that,
Yeah.
we invited all of them and said, you have to register your business. You cannot remain. You know, remember I was Minister of Finance.
Yeah.
You have to pay taxes at some point. But we told them, you register, we will give you a 5-year holiday. Yeah. For 5 years, you will not pay taxes. You will be left alone. And then after 5 years, you will start to pay. And we connected them to all this.
Wow.
And guess what? We created 21,000 jobs. Those
Wow.
people created
Wow.
21.
Wow.
So it was so exciting. Do you know when I go to places now, I see so many of them. They are thriving.
Wow.
There's one of them employing 70,000 people now.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic. So more and more, if we use the G20 as an example, as you mentioned, the African Union finally has become a member. South Africa's been a member for a while. These platforms are there. How is our voice there? Are we genuine participants and co-creators? Is our voice, particularly in the work that you do, now that you're sitting as the Commander-in-Chief, is the African voice coming through more and more to help co-create the rules?
I wish I was Commander-in-Chief. It sounds like a wonderful title. I feel more like Servant-in-Chief many times, I have to tell you. I think our voice is coming through, but it could be better. Okay? I have to be truthful to you. In Geneva, it could be better. And let me take my own organization, for instance. I tell every leader I meet that as far as the trade rules and World Trade Organization is concerned, I want stronger African presence. Just because you have me there isn't going to solve most things, because I have to be the DG for the whole world.
Yeah.
Okay? So I pay attention to Africa, and I'm proud of it because I'm African. If I don't, why am I there? But I can't spend all my time on that. What is the problem we have? We have very little capacity in our missions. I understand Geneva is a very expensive place. So most ambassadors accredited to the WTO also have to cover 32 UN institutions in Geneva. Oh. And then they have to, some of them are even also they're also the ambassadors to several countries surrounding Switzerland in Europe. So how can you be present when we are discussing very serious issues and changing the rules? If you're running around trying to take up the Human Rights Commission, the WHO, the UNCTAD, all these other organizations are also important. So I've been urging for the WTO, because it's technical and specialized, please at least give the ambassador 1 or 2 people to support him or her to pay attention. So they are trying. Several leaders have responded to that call and sent additional help. Others, I understand, is very expensive. So that's the only thing I would say. But those who are there, the ambassadors are trying much harder. I've seen a change from the time when I first came to now. Their voice is being heard much more. They have a coordinator. They meet. They try to concert their positions together and submit one position, which is much more impactful than, several voices. So it's improving. Worldwide, are we being heard at the G20? I think so. I think that South Africa has done a good job in trying to represent. Now we have the African Union also there, so that makes it stronger. Maybe as we go forward, we see how much more representation can be there. You also have Nigeria, which is a large country, that is not part of it. But now we will see. I think at this particular point it's very tricky with the G20. We just have to ride the wave of geopolitical turbulence and ride it wisely and calmly.
Set up for the next.
And then we will see where we go after a certain period of time. That's all I can say on that matter.
Okay. So, You've often said that trade is not an end in itself, it's a means to improve lives. And listening to what you were saying this evening as well, how do you believe that trade needs to evolve to serve humanity better in the next decades?
Wow, this is turning into an exam. I hope this is the last question. I think that trade needs to evolve very much, and I'm quite excited about how it can evolve. By integrating those who were left out, who are not so well integrated. That's the inclusive part that the president, is also talking about in the G20. I don't think we've been well included as Africa, like I said in my speech. I think it needs to evolve to include us. And how can that happen? From two angles. I've already said it. One is we cannot continue to have 60% of our exports be commodities and raw materials. We must improve manufacturing on the continent. That creates good jobs also. We must add value to our agricultural products, our critical minerals, even our services. So we have the potential to do that. And we must ask ourselves, what are we not doing right? How do we attract investment in order to make that happen? On the other side, we must watch the trade rules so that when we add value to our products, we don't have escalating tariffs that stop them from being sold at reasonable prices. That also happens. When we add value to cocoa and make chocolate ourselves, then we suddenly encounter tariffs on the other side. Why can't we? We are making very good chocolates now in Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and Ghana. Lovely chocolates. Yeah. But when we try to sell them, I said in a Swiss meeting in Switzerland the other day, why do we have these tariffs in the way of these chocolates? If the thing is exported to Switzerland for the chocolates to be made there, it's okay. They'd face very low tariffs for the raw material or just initial processing. As soon as we ourselves add value, which is helping us create jobs, then we meet all these escalatory. So that has to also stop.
Right.
So both sides have to work at it.
Chief Albert Luthuli often spoke of a world where great powers must learn to be great at heart. And so I'm wondering, today's multilateral trade system, does it reflect that spirit, or has it been overshadowed by power politics and protectionism? And that's the world, and even in Africa, sadly, I think I see glimpses of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, I don't see big hearts at the moment. What I see is creeping protectionism, and that's what worries me. That's why I said in my speech that even though the world trading system is still 72% on WTO terms, we cannot be complacent, precisely because of this. I don't see any big hearts.
Right, right.
I see broken hearts. I see a lot of creeping protectionism and, maybe nations looking more and more to make sure that they themselves. It hasn't gotten to the point where I feel despondent because of what I said. I really praise WTO members because it could have been worse. And the fact that almost 3/4 of world trade is still going on those terms is really amazing. The issue is, let's not let it get worse. Let's have the big hearts that you're speaking about. Let's stop trying to put in things that protect only ourselves and keep out other people. So that's why I'm saying that one way to avoid what you're saying is for us to sit back and look at ourselves. The members need to look at what they are doing and what that means for the rules and say, hey, we need to reform these rules. It's not working. That's why I'm doing X, Y, Z. What do we need to change so it works better and we don't need to have these protectionist approaches? If we don't show the willingness to do that, what will happen? All those who want to take unilateral action will continue to have the biggest excuse to do so. Because they'll say, well, WTO is not willing to reform. So we're going to continue doing our thing. But if we bring everybody together under a multilateral umbrella, if we can put aside our old grievances a little bit and look to the future, I think we can do better. Is that the last one?
Yeah. All right. I do have one last one, though, because I think for me, and this may not even have much to do with the WTO and so on and so forth, but the passion of mine is to see one Africa in the future, sooner rather than one Africa.
One Africa.
And to see ourselves as one African identity. How do we create that big heart for each other so that every single person on the continent feels like they belong to every part of the continent?
That's going to take a long time. You know, I agree with that. I would love that. But we are very far from that, okay? I think we can begin in our own countries also, trying to treat each other as one. And then we move out to others and try to treat. Let's not focus too much on what ethnic group are you from and what this and that. I always tell Nigerians, or what color or whatever it is, I'm not about ethnic groups. I'm about the most competent Nigerian to do any job. It's not about what group they come from. And you can ask, when I was finance minister, I wasn't looking to see if you are from this ethnic group or that. My group was so Maltese, was so Nigerian, because every group has talent. I really believe in diversity, because it's diversity with merit. It's not diversity so you can include someone because they're from somewhere. All ethnic groups, all colors have people who are smart. The important thing is to get those people in the right jobs, in the right places.
Yeah.
So it starts with that. I think we can help by creating one passport for all of us.
Amen.
That's why I raised the issue of the African passport. You know, why can't the AU make this African passport real? You know, so that when I go to an African country, it's recognized.
Yeah.
I remember I had one. I came here with it to South Africa. It took a little bit of doing when I got to the board and I presented it. This was when I was chair of an AU, there's an AU affiliated organization. It took a little doing, but finally they let me in with that passport. That was then, some years ago. I went to another African country, not to be named, and they said they had never seen this passport.
Wow.
And then I said, I created a bit of a scandal because I refused to leave I could have presented my national passport or whatever. But I thought, how can it be that this country also says they've never seen this passport? So I actually refused to leave the airport until they stamped. Wow. And I came in a secondary airport, not the main one. So they said, well, we can't do anything. We have to call them in the capital in the morning. So I said, okay, I'll just stay here. I stayed there till 7 a.m.
Wow, wow.
To prove the point. And they couldn't believe it. So I sat there with them in their office. When it was morning, they were finally able to call the capital and ask them, have you ever seen something called an AU African passport? And the capital was surprised. They said, yes, they know about it, but they had never seen anyone using it. Long story short, they finally agreed that they should recognize the passport and they should stamp it. And I went through. Wow. It cost me a night's sleep, but I made the point.
Wow. Okay, so I'm looking for my team now. Do we have no, yes, questions? No, okay. Time-wise, I'm being told we challenged severely. Okay, so what we're going to do? Are we doing the painting now? Hey? In fact, let's get my team manager to come and manage me.
So we're going to a musical, or we've got a poet, so we have to steal some time.
Okay. All right. That being said then, ladies and gentlemen, please can we put our hands together? Thank you so much. You are awesome. Thank you so much. Let me help you down. Thank you so much. Thank you. Come on, KwaZulu-Natal! Bayede Ndlovukazi. Is that it? Come on. Hey! We want her to remember her visit to South Africa and to the beloved kingdom of KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Ngozi, thank you so, so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I did.
You're right on time.
We're going to do it now.
Yeah, so you give it a land over.
Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we'd like to do, and one of the traditions of the memorial lecture is that we, to say thank you to our speaker, we commission a painter to put together a painting that I think we hope that you will appreciate and take away with you dearly. And I have to say that in the past, this painting has been of Chief Albert Luthuli. But you're going to see something different just now. And I want to tell you a little bit about the painter himself first. The painter's name is Philani Luthuli. He's a South African visual artist, originally from Durban, now based in Johannesburg, and he's been drawing since he could hold a pencil. His inspiration comes from the human spirit and stories of people who carry dignity, wisdom, and resilience. His work blends fine detail with deep emotion. He works mainly with oil, acrylic pencil, woodcut, and sculpture. And his portraits are known not just for their realism, but for their soul. And so I would like to call upon the team that usually our representatives to come up on stage from the partnerships, University of KwaZulu-Natal, Luthuli Museum, Luthuli Council, and Department of Sports, Arts and Culture to come up on stage to help us with this gift. And if we could also ask Dr. Ngozi to join us on stage to receive this small token of our appreciation. And ladies and gentlemen, if we could put a big hand for our painter, Philani, just stand in front so that people can acknowledge you. All right, hang on, don't wait. We've got to create the atmosphere for this. So, you're going to see the painting just now. As I said, in previous years, what we've done is, usually it's been the painting of Chief Albert Luthuli, but I think it's fair to say that most great men are great because of great women. Yeah. So tonight's artwork is not just a painting. It's a portrait of a woman whose influence on Chief Albert Luthuli's life was profound, steady, and deeply personal. Nokukanya Luthuli, fondly known as Mabengu, was more than Chief Luthuli's wife. She was his advisor, his moral anchor, the quiet force behind many of his decisions. Whilst he stood on podiums around the world, including in Oslo, receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, she kept their home, their community, and their values rooted in faith, dignity, and service. She believed in people when the world was angry. She believed in unity when the nation was divided. She believed in the power of the human spirit, something that resonates deeply with the journey and the values of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So tonight, Dr. Ngozi, we honor you. We thank you very much indeed. And as a small token of our appreciation, everybody here, we unveil now in 3, 2, 1, this wonderful gift, as we say thank you so much indeed. Wow. A big hand for Pilani Luthuli for this amazing work. Okay. Wow. Oh, okay. Dr. Ngozi? He has to switch it on, wait.
Okay, it's good now. This artist is amazing. It's such a stunning rendition, a wonderful, and an eye for color, isn't it? So thank you for doing this. If I can get this safely to Geneva, if there's a way, you will see this hanging in the WTO. So we are going to find a wonderful place for it at the WTO so that if any of you ever come by, you will see it there in a place of honor.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Great. Are you taking your pictures? All right. We're just going to do this, and then the vote of thanks. Okay. Are you done? Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for our guest speaker, Dr. Ngozi. Wow, awesome, 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 awesome. Doesn't Africa have amazing, amazing women? Truly powerful, doing amazing things. And the way she speaks and comes across, you would not believe how powerful she is in the world. Wonderful. A big hand, ladies and gentlemen, for Dr. Ngozi. Wow. How are you feeling? Hey, excited? Yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we start to wrap up, there is one small cultural item we'd love to share with you. And this is a poem by the founder Chorus of Rustics, published author from Westville, and has got a poem called Whispers for Luthuli. Please welcome Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala.
I am an African. Some think I'm a Hong Kong, and others, when they see me, they think I'm from Hong Kong. But what I'm about to tell you is Okshaya Ding Dong. My name is BK. I'm a published author of 23 books. I'm an author deeply rooted in societal emancipation with the dream of making other people's dreams come true. In the year 2022, I had a walk in black and white with Chief Albert Luthuli. When completing reading his autobiography, Let My People Go, which gave birth to the book that I penned titled Whispering to Luthuli. So in the book, I asked the chief for a sign. Chief, show us the sign. I guess we will be fine. Your family will be able to dine. Your children will shine as we march in the line. We are still in the dark. Outside, the dogs still bark. Are we running out of luck? For the truth, we cannot duck. All they need is closure. All we need is a sign. I guess we will be fine. Who took our chief? Was it a thief? But it comes by night. He was taken during the day. Who is to pay? For our lives are still at bay. Chief, show us the sign. A blank check was signed. We were left with no sign. Not even a mark, but a wound and a scar for life. All we need are answers. I guess your family will dine. Your children will be fine. But anyway, you are not of this world, Chief. Thus they failed to embrace you. Your teachings and preaching echoed inner peace. Humanity rejected the call, for you are not of this world. Thus they paid no attention to your word. To them you were a threat. To your people you were a savior, a messenger of glad tidings. To them it was stale news. Thus they chose to put you in the headlines, not to write your story, for they knew you not. No one understood your commission, even those from the mission, for you were not of this world. Heavens shone on earth, a priceless jewel was unearthed to bring humanity into existence, a life lived to the fullest. Thus you chose service to self. It was not selfish, but a commitment to duty, for you were not of this world. Wasea Estenga Hospital wayomqedela. So the judgment meant it. May the spirits of Luthuli live and speak to us all. Mother Africa.
Wow. Wow. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And you know what? With young people like this, I know that we're going to be fine. Thank you so, so much indeed, my dear brother. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, it's now my great pleasure to ask for a final set of thoughts, closing remarks, and perhaps a vote of thanks. If we could call upon the first Luthuli granddaughter, Mama Nana Ngobese Nxumalo. Okay.
Akuvumanga ukuthi ngiqhubeke ngingabonganga umshibe osenzela udlabazana abe muhle kanje esazohamba aye Geneva. Siyabonga kakhulu madlanduna, ukhule ubenzele nabanye. Kodwa nje namhlanje I feel so emotional. And I'm very thankful for this. Uqhubeke njalo mntwana wasekhaya. Siyabonga. Program Director, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues and friends, please allow me to say all protocol is observed. I think people are tired, not because the people who are here are not important, but I think we will allow ourselves to recognize the fact that they have been mentioned a lot of times. It is both a privilege and profound responsibility to rise at this moment to extend our collective gratitude to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala for the remarkable address she has just delivered. I just realized how fortunate we can be when we have moms and grannies as finance ministers and director generals of the World Trade Organization. I'm having goosebumps right now because I think for the first time I missed out on economics because I didn't have good economics teachers. In one afternoon, you have taught us what the world trade is, and we're grateful for that. Can we just have another round of applause? On my list, I would like to acknowledge an unwavering support of this lecture that has become what it is in the past 19 years from the following: the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture led by Minister Gayton McKenzie, the Luthuli Museum led by Brian Klaba as CEO and Advocate Charlie Naidu as chairperson, the University of KwaZulu-Natal led by Vice Chancellor Professor Nana Poku, the Chief Albert Foundation led by Sandile Luthuli as our chairperson, but last but not the least, the community of Westville. Can we give them a round of applause? I am a Westville child, so I'm biased. I am biased. It would be amiss of me not to mention our program director, Peter Ndoro, Umntwana kaManxumalo, as our permanent program director of this lecture. It won't be the same without you. Without all these partners, this lecture would not be what it has become today. We gather in a year marked by a historic reckoning, Judge Khatebe's declaration that the death of Chief Albert Luthuli, Nobel Peace Prize laureate and moral compass for our liberation struggle, was not an accident but murder. This ruling does more than correct the record. It reclaims the truth, restores dignity, and reminds us that justice, though delayed, may never be denied. It's against this backdrop of truth reclaimed by Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, reflections on the W Trade Organization resonate so powerfully. Just as Justice Khatebe's judgment compels us to confront uncomfortable truths in our history, her words compel us to confront uncomfortable truths in our present. That global institutions, once exclusive to the Western countries, due to the fact that now the tide is turning, they are beginning to face a threat because the underdeveloped are now rising. I think we must be aware of that and take note of what Dr. Okonjo-Iweala has just said. Yet, as with Chief Albert Luthuli's legacy, their survival is not merely symbolic. They are essential to the pursuit of fairness, equity, and shared humanity. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, your leadership has shown us that institutions can endure even during difficult times. You said your partners are the ones who did not drop the pole. Otherwise, we would be somewhere else other than where we are. A drop from 80% to 72% at this point is a miracle. You have reminded us that trade is not simply about goods and services. It's about people, livelihoods, and dignity. For the first time, in my mind, economics started making a lot of sense. In linking the survival of WTO to the survival of justice itself, you have illuminated the moral stakes of multilateralism. Chief Albert Luthuli's life was a testament to principled resistance and unwavering hope, which is what you are giving us through your lecture. Justice Khatebe's ruling re-anchors the legacy of Luthuli in justice, and your reflections extend that legacy into the global sphere, showing us that there is nothing to fear, as you actually told us. The future is bright. We have young people, we have women, we have digital technology that is going to take us many, many miles ahead if all of us hold hands as Africans. The fight for justice at home and the fight for fairness abroad are threads of the same tapestry. And I want to extend that. When I say abroad, we are talking about mainly our continent, because we cannot look outside before we look within. That means we have to hold hands so that our African trade agreements start making a lot more sense to us, and then the world will start believing that we are able to do what we actually want to do with the future. Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, on behalf of all gathered here, but mainly the partners who have yearly and tirelessly organized this esteemed lecture, we thank you for your wisdom, your courage, and your unwavering dedication to the cause of global equity. And you have done that in the style that we haven't seen in a long time. And we are proud because you are mom and granny. Your words today have not only honored the WTO's legacy, but they have also inspired us to strengthen the fragile threads of multilateralism that hold our world together. May your vision continue to guide us, and may your example remind us that even in times of uncertainty, institutions can endure and serve humanity with renewed and more inclusive purpose. We can vote for you, Dr. Ngozi, to be the advisor to our African finance ministers, so that we all start speaking the same language of bringing all these ideas together in the continent. I thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Do you need help to go down? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much indeed, Mama Nana. And whilst you were